You hear it all the time from sci-fi movie fans around the world. Stop putting out the same old IPs and start crafting new stories. Occasionally, Hollywood actually listens, only to be slapped down by critics who just don't get or appreciate stories that they aren't already familiar with. Critics. Well, that's a shame, because when it comes to movies like 2009 Surrogates, we're here to tell you that it's not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. And I will fully admit to the world, I have zero shame in this whatsoever, I love a good sci-fi film. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the ones that are like the big namers. And yes, I love my Star Wars. Yes, I love my Star Trek. But every now and then there's those little lesser known films that are great stories, good cast, and the critics just don't get it. And this is one of those times, because we are talking about 2009's Surrogates. And joining me for this episode, my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, and I'm excited to talk about this movie.
Now, when I begged and pleaded to do this film, and your initial reaction before watching it, because I know I know sometimes I'll mention a movie and you're like, oh
yes, dear,
we're gonna geek out on this one, are we? Or at least you're gonna geek out on it, and I'm gonna sit here and watch with a smile on my face. Your initial reaction when I mentioned this?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. When I did the quick, research, watched the trailer, I thought, what a fantastic idea. I want a surrogate. I want to be able to sleep all day and have my robotic alter ego go and live my day for me, do my work, do whatever errands need to be done, and I'm just going to sleep.
Right?
But
that sounds nice.
Then I watched the movie. So sad. I no longer want a surrogate. No.
I still do.
I would much. Oh,
I want that chair.
It did not end well.
No, it didn't end well. But I like to relax.
No, you know what? Live your life, people. Enjoy what you do and live life to your fullest, because this movie was it was sad. It was so sad.
Well, I mean, yes, there are definitely some sad aspects to it. But before we get too deep into this film, before we spoil the rest of the show, because we want people to actually listen to the whole episode.
I mean, it was a good movie. We're here to, defend it.
Right? Sad doesn't necessarily mean bad. Just because they rhyme,
right?
It's not an and/or kind of thing. Okay?
Sadness ain't badness, people. Sadness ain't badness.
We need that on a T-shirt now, don't we? But we're going to take this film. We're going to take 2009 Surrogates and trailerize it.
In the near future, people are wired to the outside world, interacting with society from behind avatars that may or may not look like them. They stay at home all day, lounging around in pajamas and avoiding actually going outside. Meanwhile, a small group of dissidents shun what society says is good, walling them off from the majority and doing their own damn thing, while saying that the rest of the world is wrong and a revolution is coming. Wait. Are we sure this isn't now? Kind of feels like now. I mean, the film came out in 2009. We're in the near future. Where the hell's my surrogate? Anyway, Bruce Willis shocks no one by playing a cop in this smart sci-fi comic book movie adaptation that's not Sin City in Surrogates. Rated PG-13 for Plastic Genius.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Right?
A comic book property?
Coincidentally, yes, this is actually based on the Surrogates comic book series from Top Shelf Productions. And by the way, this movie is set in 2017. So where the hell is my damn surrogate?
You know what I found interesting?
What's that?
How was it in 2009 they had a Toyota hybrid?
I'm very curious.
We had
about
a 2009 Toyota, and we were nowhere near having a hybrid nor an electric.
I am very fascinated about that because, I mean, obviously these things take time to come into fruition, and I'm sure it's probably one of those things where they were probably testing cars to be able to be electric or maybe solar powered at the time. Like, there's always these inventions that seem really, really cool and, you know, really innovative, and they get tossed into movies. Like, I remember working security on a TV series, and there was this car, and they had it as their taxi because it looked futuristic, and that car is still out on the road today. It's not exactly a great car, at least as far as its looks go, but it worked as far as a futuristic car. So the Prius hybrid, yeah, maybe it was in experimental beta kind of testing maybe at that point, who knows, but maybe it's one of those things where, hey, we'll let you put this car in the film for free, and maybe it'll get a little bit of attention. But really, it's only 14 years ago that this film came out. And
yeah, but 14 years ago with our 2009, we didn't even have electric locks.
No, we had electric locks.
We didn't have power
Well, no,
locks.
we didn't have power locks. The expensive cars had power locks.
Ugh.
You know, maybe Bruce Willis could have afforded the power lock car. We couldn't.
In 2009, we were so far off the mark.
We're lucky we didn't have to open up our car with a coat hanger and slid down the handle broke off. I got to get it open somehow.
All I can imagine is, you know, after 6 months on a waiting list, how the hell did they get one and we couldn't?
That's right.
Anyway.
Okay, but let's get into who's in this film. The movie stars Bruce Willis, Radha Mitchell, Rosamund Pike, Ving Rhames, James Cromwell, Boris Kajow, Devin Rattray, and Jake Noseworthy. It was directed by Jonathan Mostow, who previously directed Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, and Breakdown. The film had a budget of $80 million, and according to IMDb, it domestically made $38 million and worldwide $122 million. So depending on how much they spent on advertising on the film, it made some money back. But when it was released on the September 25th, 2009 weekend, it debuted at number 2 with $14.9 million. That was the top debut that week. It came in second behind the $25 million that was brought in for the second week of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And you can't really beat kids film like for the first couple of weeks if it's a good kids film. Also debuting that week at number 6 was Pandorum, which brought in $4 million, and at number 3 was the remake of Fame, which brought in $10 million. So Surrogates was the top grossing debut that week, but it didn't win any awards, nor did it win any Razzies. So, you know, good on that. But the reason why we are here, and it's not just because I like sci-fi films. Well, okay, mostly it's because I like sci-fi films, but still, the reason why we're here is because of the critic score. Over at Metacritic, this film has a Metascore of 45. And over at Rotten Tomatoes, this is pretty even actually. The audience score sits at 38%, and the tomatometer at 37%. So this is pretty much a consensus grade on this film. And I think it's definitely deserves to be higher. But let's get into why it deserves to be higher. We start with Bruce Willis himself as Detective Tom Greer. How was he for you?
Oh my God. As the surrogate or as the robotic cop?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to call him a RoboCop, but
no, that's Peter Weller.
But he was so good. I mean, I mean, mad respect to Bruce Willis for being able to knock that out of the park, playing a robotic version of a human form.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really. And his partner there, which I'm sure we'll get to, but just all, like, there was something so calculating about his movements and his facial expressions, and holy shit, like, Did he win any sort of an Oscar on this one?
Nope,
Because
not at all.
his performance as the surrogate alone was top notch. Like, I mean, Bruce Willis is always good in everything that he does. I'm a big Bruce Willis fan, but wow. Just wow.
So let me explain a little bit before we get a little bit further here. If you are unfamiliar with the movie Surrogates, let me explain. Okay, so society is at a point where people have the ability to neurally link to a robotic body, and all they do is they lie down in this bed and they put like this head device on that covers their eyes. So they see and control these robotic avatars, if you will. And it's the robot bodies that go out and do the work for them and have to go outside for them. And they can just stay home. And the whole movie starts with like a 4-minute, fake newsreel package of how surrogates make life better because crime is down and disease is down, and this premise that if you don't leave the house, bad things don't happen,
which is frighteningly scary and accurately true,
right?
From if we learned anything from 1999 onward,
right? But the thing is, you can have the avatars, you can have the surrogates look like you, or at least the version of you that you want them to look like. So all of the surrogates that are walking around in this film have this very plastic feel to them. And the fact that they don't really physically show emotion, their expressions are all pretty neutral and blank, and they look like they've been Instagram filtered to death kind of thing, because everything is smooth and shiny and plastic looking, and it's basically an Instagram filter. But the thing is, for some of these actors, you're getting to see the real person and you're also seeing the avatar. So it's two very different performances. And you're right, like Bruce Willis has to basically emotionlessly act when he's the surrogate, and it's fascinating because it's like a dead stare.
Oh yeah, like I said, his mannerisms, his movements, everything was so calculated or robotic, yet still human, had a human aspect to it. But it was just so well done. Oh my God.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like when you think about android-like characters, right? Your first thought's probably going to be Brent Spiner, who played Data in Star Trek The Next Generation. But yet Data still brow wrinkled and, showed signs of processing thoughts as he would look off to the side kind of thing. But by the very nature of Data's character, he tried to emulate human emotion and human features because he aspired to be human. Here, the surrogates are just basically like hopping in a car and driving around, right? Like, and going to do your job in these virtual kind of worlds without your thoughts move these characters. And by the way, this film's 14 years old, and you can go find it on Disney Plus. If you happen to have Disney Plus, go watch the film, because we're going to spoil it from here on in. By this point, you were safe. You've been forewarned now.
So can I just get a qualifier on this? So it is the actions of the surrogate are based on
the thoughts of the person, yes.
Of the person.
Yeah.
So is it possible then for the surrogate to go rogue and do its own thing, and kind of like an iRobot where they can stray from...
No, because the surrogates themselves are not thinking machines. They only move because of the connection. Now, I'm sure you could probably hijack the connection, right, and take over the surrogate, but it only moves if you think it to move.
Then that makes it even sadder.
But the thing is, there's this moment too where, after a car chase and whatnot, and Bruce Willis finds himself in a hospital, and then he gets out of the hospital and he's walking around on the sidewalk for the first time in probably God knows how long, and he's not used to all the people around him. He's basically been at home for, you have to think, years and years and years by this point.
Which exactly is what makes it so, so sad and so such a, I don't know, a telling time or of the whole pandemic lockdown.
I
right?
was going to say
that moment when we were allowed to once again people again and be in a crowded area, and you kind of get that feeling of, I don't know, claustrophobic, or just you don't know how to interact with people again.
And the thing too is that with these surrogates, the user doesn't feel pain, right? So these surrogates are walking around the street and without really any thought to bumping into anything or anyone. And here's Bruce Willis walking around in real life, and you could see, and I'll admit, early days of the pandemic, right? You go to the grocery store in person and you're almost shrinking into yourself, trying to make yourself smaller so you stay away from people. And it's really kind of frightening when you try to avoid people. And you can now these days kind of relate to that moment where Bruce Willis is on the street for the first time in probably years, and not knowing how to deal with the mass of people when physically you haven't left your home. It's scary. But it is. And the thing is, it's two different performances. It's the surrogate performance and the real Bruce Willis performance. And the fact that you saw both goes to show just how good a job he did.
Oh my God, yeah. He completely knocked this out of the park. He did amazing. But again, it makes the backstory of his relationship with his wife, ex-wife.
No, with his wife.
She's current wife.
Yeah. The thing is,
it's so sad.
Yeah. The whole thing is their son passed away in a car accident, and that kind of broke them. As far as, you're already in this world where surrogates are a reality, but their son died in a time before surrogates. So the reality is that had there been surrogates, their son might have, still been alive. And, you're dealing with people dealing with that kind of trauma and not knowing how to connect and talk about it. So you have very broken people in this situation at the same time as, he's trying to find or stop this crime where someone had fired a weapon at these surrogates and it killed the users, which isn't supposed to happen. And that's the thing. The surrogates are supposed to protect people. You can do whatever you want to a surrogate and it doesn't hurt the user. And all of a sudden, this surrogate is hit with this weapon and it sends a neural feedback to the user and literally fries his brains. So now there's this weapon out that can kill the user by killing the surrogate, and Bruce Willis has to find that weapon and stop things from happening. So he's dealing with that and dealing with his own broken real self at the same time. It's a strong performance for him. And it's one of those things that Bruce Willis was picking up these films, especially around this time, where they were fascinating stories. And it wasn't just your typical die-hard action film, right? Being in movies like this, and The Whole Nine Yards, and Sin City, and, really kind of stepping outside of the action hero John McClane genre, even though he was still doing those kind of films, right? Like Bruce Willis really stretched his acting, flexed his acting muscles, if you will, in a lot of these films for the betterment of the film. And it's a shame that they didn't get the recognition that they deserve. And I think this film, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, this film holds up very well. But let's move on to his wife in this. Rosamund Pike playing Maggie. I really liked her in this, but Rosamund Pike for you.
You know what? It was just such a tragic tale, and I still can't wrap my head around if her thoughts were controlling her surrogate. Why was she pushing Bruce Willis away? Like, why? Like, I mean, I get that there was a lot of pain there, but it was almost like, I don't know if she had completely shut down. Clearly, there was more to it because you see that she's taking a lot of painkillers. Maybe I missed something, but what had happened to her eye?
That's the car crash that she was in as well with her son. And that's the thing, right? Like with the surrogate and the ability to be safe at home, you can still go out and do things knowing that you're home safe. But Bruce Willis is at this stage where he wants to be with his wife, not with the surrogate, but with his wife. He misses the contact. He misses holding her. He misses her, right? She is maybe even more broken than he is. She's hiding in her room. She can't sleep, but she can't go outside. She hides behind the surrogate. The only reason why she, still is able to do her job is through her surrogate. The only reason why she's even able to live is through her surrogate. And the fact that her husband wants her and not the surrogate, her walls are up. Her walls are up, and she is incapable of letting anyone in because she's so, withdrawn from not just reality, but humanity as well.
What an incredible performance, though. I mean, it was so well done. It was it was so hard to watch, and so kudos to the actress.
Yeah,
because
and that's the thing. Rosamund Pike has been getting a lot of kudos lately for films like I Care a Lot, and she's the lead in the Amazon Prime series The Wheel of Time. And we actually talked about her before when we did our video game movies grading on a curve episode, because she, of course, was in Doom. So, her career has come a long, long way. But you see in this film, and the beauty thing is, too, is when she's playing the surrogate, right? And an emotionless performance, because the surrogate isn't supposed to mimic human emotions, you still feel the fear and the emotional walling off through the surrogate performance. And the fact that all of a sudden, like the surrogate can go blank and feel like it's unplugged because the user took the headset off and is like, no, I'm not listening to you, la 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 la.
Well, as the surrogate, there was that coldness. There was that unfeeling, like, you know what, I hear what you're saying, but I just don't care.
Right.
Like, it was like, pardon, dying. Maybe I need a surrogate.
Yeah, don't go outside. Don't. But that's the thing. Like, there's that part where Bruce Willis is in the kitchen and he's saying, like, we should get away. Maybe go to the Bahamas or something like that. And she's like, oh, that's a great idea. And he's like, no, like us, you and I. And then she's like, I don't want to talk about this. Right? You see all of a sudden, like, the disconnect from humanity that she's put in. Like, she'll go to anywhere. No, she won't. Her surrogate will go anywhere in the world. And she's living through that, but she's not living. It's a strong performance.
Yeah.
Radha Mitchell, who plays Greer's partner Jennifer Peters in this. I liked her in this, but how did you think of her?
I thought she was fantastic as the partner. She was tough. She was smart. It was interesting when you saw her as a person, how she did look completely different from what you would expect. And I don't know, should I say it? The turnaround?
Oh, we've warned them.
Oh, I know. The turnaround, where even as Bruce Willis's partner, she turns on him.
Well, no, she doesn't turn on him. So clearly you were looking away at this part. So at one point, there's a home invasion into her home while she's sleeping, and her surrogate is like on its charger, and she's killed, and control of her surrogate is sent off to somebody else.
So that was the turnabout.
That's the turnabout. So it's someone else controlling.
Oh, I think the pup needed to go outside.
Yeah, that's when you had to like step away from the TV for a bit. But yeah, no.
My bad.
That's when Detective Peters was no longer Detective Peters.
Well, I mean, it took me half of the movie to figure out what the hell was going on to the people, the humans, getting their brains fried. I literally thought someone was breaking into their house and hurting them or causing them pain, like at the same time that bad things were happening to the surrogate. It took me forever to realize, no, it's connected.
No, it's just a neural feedback through this virus that basically disintegrates the surrogate, if you will. Like it's, again, it's one of those things where, and that's the thing too, like with Radha Mitchell as Peters, the fact that, she plays herself for a little bit, not much, but just enough that we see what the real Peters looks like. And then of course there's Peters, the surrogate, and then there's Peters, someone else controlling the surrogate. And there are different verbalizations in there. Like there's one part where she's driving Bruce Willis around and she's like, I need you to look at this. And it's like, you're a detective, Bruce Willis. How did you not pick up on that? Like, did not seem a little sus? And then, of course, like the reveal and whatnot. But yeah, no, it's like Radha Mitchell basically had to play 3 different people in this case.
And to keep, the characterization different,
but
uniquely different.
Different enough. Yeah.
But subtle sometimes too. I mean, honestly, until she jumped out of the car, I was like, wait, what just why?
Right?
Yeah.
Ving Rhames as the Prophet. A reuniting of Ving Rhames and Bruce Willis from Pulp Fiction.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So Marcellus Wallace back in, but here's the Prophet. How was the Prophet?
Oh my God. That moment when it was discovered that he was a surrogate too, even though he was spewing such hate and
vitriol and
he was like the leader of the anti-prophet, die robot scum.
Yeah. So let me kind of explain this here. So there are in each, in major cities in the States at this point in time in the movie, there are what's called dread communities. These are communities that are that shun the idea of the surrogate. They're like, go out and live your life. Go out and be a person in person kind of thing.
Yet I think it's so funny that they had these little, for lack of a better term, camps where they were feeding off of the words of the prophet.
Yeah.
So they're talking about going out and living their life and thinking for yourself, and yet they just become lemmings to what they're being fed. Like, really? The beautiful irony behind it is...
Yeah, no, it's literally like, how to run a cult 101. Really.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, like Ving Rhames as the prophet, before the reveal, is that, he's this impassioned, spewing rhetoric to his followers and whatnot. And when he's getting his minions to do what he wants them to do, it's very soft spoken and very like, I need you to do this for me kind of thing. And it almost feels like, there's how to run a cult 101. And then this is the charisma that Ving Rhames brought to the Prophet, even though the Prophet is just a surrogate, run by somebody else.
You know what? He was so good. He was so good. And then I was just like, that aha moment.
Right. Let's talk about the guy who was running that surrogate and eventually was running the Peter surrogate, James Cromwell, who played Cantor, the creator of Surrogates, who is now trying his best to destroy the surrogates. How was James Cromwell?
Can I just say I had that moment when I saw him. I was like, oh my God, he's such a great actor that I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And of course, he had to be the creator because, but it got a bit confusing at that point when he was introduced, because he's the creator, but he's also trying to bring them down.
Right.
And that's where I just kind of got like, help me, school me.
Okay. So let me kind of explain here. So Cantor, at the beginning of the film, Cantor's son comes to visit him and, comes to visit him through surrogacy. Right. And Cantor loans him a local surrogate so his son can come and visit, quote unquote. And then the son is attacked with this weapon. It kills the son. All of a sudden, Cantor realizes that really they were gunning for Cantor because it's known that was one of Cantor's surrogates. So the realization that by loaning the surrogate to his son to control so he can have a visit, he inadvertently was the cause of his son dying.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, he was no longer working for VSI, which was the company that makes the surrogates. He was out. So this was kind of his way to get back at them by getting his hands on this weapon and uploading the virus that this weapon uses to fry out the surrogate in order to be able to get rid of surrogacy.
So then who created the weapon?
The weapon was actually created by the U.S. Army because, to be used as a weapon on the battlefield if, their enemies were using surrogates on it was basically a way to end the battle fast by eliminating all the surrogates and not having it be a war of attrition.
Well, because that was really the benefit of surrogates in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Sending the surrogates into war. Okay.
And you see that concept in movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 or Ender's Game, where, people are at these virtual stations and flying these craft and fighting a proxy war, if you will. It's the same theory here. And this weapon was developed in order to be able to eliminate the enemy's surrogates fast rather than have it be this just knock rock'em sock'em robots, basically.
It's an interesting parallel to, I think, where society's heading with all the AI potentially taking over human jobs. Like, I don't know. And I even legitimately had to ask you at the beginning of the movie if these newsreels were based on
real, yeah.
were based on fact, because it's almost like, are we there yet? Like, is this I don't know, not too far off future? I mean, could I get a surrogate and sleep all day while my alter ego or my robotic twin is out living my life for me?
Well, it's funny because there are studies where AI is being used to gather information from people's social media feeds and things that they put out there in order to be able to create an interface that would mimic the same personality that you have and that you put out there. There was an episode of Black Mirror from season 2, which starred Haley Atwell and Domhnall Gleeson. Really, really heartbreaking episode. Like, if you get triggered easily, don't watch this episode. It's a great episode, but if you get triggered easily, so I'll spoil that episode for you. Just be forewarned here. Season 2, episode 1, but be forewarned. So they're a couple, and he goes off to go to the grocery store to pick up some things, and he dies in a car crash. And she has the opportunity to purchase this lifelike surrogate, if you will, right? This robot that is programmed with the AI feeds of his social media feeds and whatever she can give this company that is a piece of him. And it's this robot that's basically looks like him and sounds like him and occasionally acts like him, but it's not exactly him. And all of a sudden she realizes that she, in her attempt to not be without him, she created something that's not him. And it's like, it's sad, because then all of a sudden this is what she's left with, and she knows it's not him, and it's heartbreaking. And you see some of these AI story warnings of what AI could bring, and movies like this, they're also cautionary tales. Like, this movie is it's an action film, but there are cautionary tales in this film. And yeah, it's, with every new technology, it's what could it do and what shouldn't it do? So there's a lot. Yeah,
it's kind of like Jeff Goldblum's "just because you can doesn't mean you should." Right? Ugh. Yeah. But can we just talk about how incredible visually this movie is? I liken it to when the surrogates would come into any sort of damage. It was very, very similar to like a Terminator or RoboCop. It just looked so incredible when you would peel the face off of these surrogates, like the robotics behind it, the green fluid, transmission fluid, right. I don't know, oozing out of them. Like, it was really, really well done.
Oh yeah, no, the budget, like over $80 million budget, was
I can
definitely
see that.
put to good use, right? And in 2009 too, like that's a good chunk of cheddar for that time. And it's also one of the first films to really use the de-aging process. Yes, they relied heavily on makeup and lighting, but they did use some de-aging for the surrogates and the look of the surrogates, because that's a much younger looking Bruce Willis. That's Detective Tom Greer there.
I noticed that too. And at first I was like, wow, Bruce Willis, it looks like him, but that can't be Bruce Willis. And then I'm like, holy that's Bruce Willis.
Right. So, but the thing is, that everything that they did to make the surrogates look the way like that they did, it stands the test of time. It's not like some of the movies that were done. And it's like, whoa, that's creepy looking. It's not creepy looking unless they wanted to be creepy looking. Like, and that's the intention. Then yes, it's spot on. But no, it's smartly done. But James Cromwell as well. Like, I do love him. Like, ever since Star Trek First Contact, like, he was great as Ephraim Cochrane. He was also really good in iRobot, and iRobot's another film that actually does qualify. Well,
I had to laugh because when the movie was done, it was suggested that we watch iRobot next, and I'm like, that's an excellent parallel.
Why, yes, we should watch iRobot next. Thank you, completely random suggestion.
Oh my God.
Yeah, guess what movie you're watching next?
Again, it's like, it's almost creepy that, there was a movie or something that we were watching completely like separate from my Facebook feed. And we watched it. And then from that moment, it was popping up in my suggested video watching. And I'm like, whoa, this, like, how? Big brother, leave me alone.
Your data is not safe.
No.
No.
It's crazy, though.
It's like one of those things where you'll be sitting there, not even touching your phone, and you're like, I think tent camping is fun. And then you go on Facebook, and all of a sudden, there's like all these ads for like tents from Canadian Tire. It's like, you're listening.
If you're listening to me, Mr. Coors, we have broken up. Please.
Not Coors Light.
No.
She's talking Michael Coors.
Michael, leave me alone. Get out of my feed.
Stop going to the website.
I have unsubscribed.
Stop talking Michael Kors.
Oh.
Now we know her weakness. Okay, so Boris Kodji, and I apologize if I messed up the name. He played Greer's boss, like the head detective there. How was he?
Oh, you know what? For some reason, I thought he was human. He played the Surrogates so well that I honestly thought he was the only human in the police force. Mm-hmm. So I was shocked when, he had his chip removed.
Right. And the thing is, again, a facially emotionless performance of Stone. But it is like, and when you realize that he's the one that got the weapon to the guy who used it in order to take out Cantor, and you realize just how deep this, not a conspiracy, but this plot is in order to be able to stop Cantor and get rid of him, right? Because obviously VSI knows that Cantor's trying to do something, but they can't really go do it themselves, so they get Stone to basically get a proxy. Like there's a lot to it, and yes, you could sit there and point out some plot holes here and there. But I don't think the plot holes, if there are any really visible ones, are that huge, and they don't ruin the movie.
It was to a point where you could almost call what was coming up next. Mm-hmm. When Bruce Willis was, just go home, man. Just go take care of yourself and your family, right? He was he not like taken off the case, or he was put on?
Exactly. He was told that he was no longer on the case. He's on suspension after the helicopter crash in the Dread community. Yes.
Right. So you definitely saw, like, that was predictable, mm-hmm. right?
Oh, it had to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Take him out of the equation, and and then continue with the plot.
Now, there is a lot of the critiques that were on Rotten Tomatoes. We're talking about how it falls into almost predictable action beats. And I don't know if I would necessarily argue that, but at the same token as well, that they're good action beats. Like the movie clips, and it's only like a 92-minute movie or something like that. Like, it's not long. It doesn't drag. At no point am I sitting there going, hurry up, let's go, come on, kill somebody. Like, the movie is paced extraordinarily well. Just two more people to get through here. Jack Noseworthy, who played Strickland, the guy who had the weapon and killed the first surrogates that started the whole thing of this. Not a large role. And
he spent most of the movie running
mm-hmm.
and looking, shocked, surprised that he was found.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean,
like, oh, you found me.
Yeah.
And then he kept running. And like, that was pretty much, was that his main directive?
It's pretty much, it's the Doctor Who direction, like run,
Mm-hmm.
But the character wasn't really fleshed out that much. He was just basically a means to an end.
I don't think it needed to be, though.
No.
He was kind of just the hired gun, the hitman, and that was it.
Yeah. And
he had the weapon. And
he was disposable. Let's put it that way. And he was disposed of. So there was that. I mean, he could have been played by anybody, but I think Jack Noseworthy did a decent enough job. The other person here is Bobby, the IT guy that worked in that little basement.
He was so great.
You know who he is, though, right?
Okay, no.
As played by Devin Rattray, Buzz from the first Home Alone film.
No.
Yep.
Holy no, I did not see that coming. I literally thought it was maybe at some point, I thought it was guy from
The Ridiculous Six.
No. And the fact that I cannot remember this actor's name is just, I am ashamed of myself. He was in Fanboys. He was in Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, yes, him. Dan Fogler.
Dan Fogler, but what was his Fantastic Beasts?
Jacob Kowalski is the character name.
Jacob Kowalski. Kowalski. How
Kowalski.
How can I forget that? It's so close to Wazinski.
Mike Wazinski. I'm watching you. Always watching you.
But yeah, no, like the guy who played Kevin McAllister's brother in Home Alone is the IT guy from Surrogates.
Oh gosh.
And it's interesting that he's the guy who is in a room full of, robotic surrogates that are watching everyone else's feed, and that's how he's helping shut down surrogates so they can stop crime from happening. Yet he's there in the flesh. It makes for an interesting character dynamic there.
Well, I love the line where he was like, I'm not going to let this genius go to waste. And
right.
like they've been trying to turn me into a surrogate for, so long. Yeah, I thought that was funny.
And that's the thing.
It still didn't end well for him.
No, he didn't die. He was just like, tied up and put aside and had to, help Bruce Willis stop the virus from killing everybody. Because that's the thing.
He didn't die in the end?
No, he didn't die in the end.
Okay.
Were you walking the dog again? But that's the thing. It shows another character trait here where it's like you have the people who use surrogates. You have the people who are in the dread community. And then you have characters like this guy, like Bobby, the IT guy, who's just lives his life. It's all good, but he's not angry at people for using surrogates. Like, he is literally the human personification of meh as far as his attitude goes. And I think that also needed to be portrayed in this because it's not like it's you either surrogate or you're not, right? There are always going to be people in the middle, and Bobby's kind of like the avatar for the people who just like, do what you want.
He's just there.
Right? Well, it's not he's just there. He's, he does a big job kind of thing, but he's content with life as it is. And he's quite happy to let other people live the life the way they want to live. Okay. But it has come time. So, Carrie, who is your MVP of 2009's Surrogates?
Oh, I think this is obvious. I'm going to go with Bruce. But the surrogate version.
Okay. I mean, the thing is, the film really does kind of rest on him. Like, he drives the bus in this film. Absolutely. There's no question about that. But I'm going to toss the coin, and because I had two in mind as far as my MVP. And Bruce Willis was one of them for sure. But for disagreeing's sake, I'm going to go the other way. And I'm going to give my MVP to Rosamund Pike, who played the wife in this. Because I think Bruce Willis is a great actor. Rosamund Pike is also a phenomenal actor. But the thing is, there was something so heartbreaking about her performance.
Well, likewise, there was something so incredibly heartbreaking about that moment when the human version of Bruce Willis's character, when he was really coming to terms with the fact that his wife was shutting him out, pushing him away.
Yeah.
And, he's he's a man that has lost his entire family at that point.
Yeah.
And you just feel so much for him. It's just like he just, despite his best efforts, he just can't get through. He can't get through to the surrogate, obviously. I'm so happy that it finally came full circle and he finally
and
reconnected.
That end. The end of that movie is just, not necessarily like them finally reconnecting kind of thing, but that moment in the end. And I'm not going to tell you what happens kind of thing, but that moment in the end where you're like, oh my God, like this is a great end to it. It's not a cliche end at all. And I'm going to ask you this because I know of the two of us, I'm the big sci-fi geek. Like that, if
no, really? Yeah.
I was going to say, if you've been listening to this show long enough, you know full well that of the two of us, I am the geek.
It's okay. I tend to like the more, psychotic movies.
Right?
Reservoir Dogs, anything Tarantino.
Yeah, if there's blood and swearing, you're on board kind of thing, right? But not necessarily horror films, just like, the more violent films, but not horror violent kind of thing.
Reboot, the Genetic Opera.
It's not a horror film.
No, it's not, but...
It's a dystopian, futuristic rock musical.
Yeah.
Right?
True. Accurate.
Throw in the adjectives here. But...
Okay, I've founded off this question for long enough.
Okay, so as far as sci-fi movies go, for someone who is not necessarily a fan of the sci-fi genre, even though you don't shun away from it, I think I've broken you enough. But how does this movie work for you as a sci-fi film?
I tend to look at it differently, and I think instead of looking at it as a sci-fi movie, I was looking at the human angle of it. Again, where I say, like, it was just so sad to see that scene where the human versions of these surrogates that are living daily life, when the humans are once again free to live their life, to walk amongst other people for the first time. They're out of their homes, they're out of their rooms, their beds, that contraption that they have over their head. And just that moment where they're free was so wow. It was, it blew my mind to think, like, how did they let it get to this? Whether it be a sci-fi movie or not, like, as much as you could joke and say, what a great idea. I'm just going to have, I'm going to clone myself and I'm going to have the clone go out and do the stuff for me. But it's like, you tend to lose a bit of yourself in that. And there's that human aspect that you're kind of almost missing out on your life. And that part kind of, like, I thought it was a great movie because of that angle.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you haven't disowned me for suggesting another sci-fi film, because I kind of like to geek out every now and then.
And it was well done, too.
It was well done.
I mean, again, very much in line with, like, a Terminator type movie.
Yeah. Or an iRobot. I feel like there are some similarities to iRobot. And I mean, let's be honest.
No.
Well, yes and no. I completely agree that that's dealing with more sentient robots, whereas this is dealing with more extensions of yourself.
Well, that's where I was asking if the surrogate at any point would take over.
No,
that's more iRobot.
Exactly. This is more just you're driving the remote control car with your brain from your bed.
Yeah.
I still use one because there are days when I just don't want to get out of bed because the bed is nice.
I feel that, but I wouldn't want to live that way.
Oh God,
and
no.
I think that's where this society kind of lost out.
Yeah. Cautionary tale.
But there were humans in the police force as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like Bobby, the IT guy. Yeah. Like, it wasn't that you were told that you had to use a surrogate. It's just that people found safety and comfort in being different versions of themselves. And that's the thing. Like, you saw that with the surrogates. Like, most of them looked like more idealized versions of themselves or who they used to be, kind of thing. And it's not accepting of who you really are. And that's it's almost like a drug at that point, right? It's like you can go out there and be the best version of yourself that you have in your mind and do whatever you want and not suffer any consequences and not get hurt and not be in danger. And it's an attractive idea, but how realistic is it? And how much of yourself do you lose in constantly controlling an avatar that's not really you, no matter how much you try to think that it's you? I can't believe we're pontificating these deep discussions of life because we watched a 2009 sci-fi film with Bruce Willis. Okay, Carrie, thank you so much for watching this film with me. And to you, our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode. Now, you guys know the drill. If there is a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned or you think is just so bad that there's no way in heck that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at NotThatBadCast or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our coming soon page so you can see some of the movies that we are preparing to talk about in future episodes. Until next time, she's Carrie. I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad. Take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.